The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready. Tennessee has named their SEC representatives, and if you listen to this program weekdays at 10 a.m. live on YouTube or wherever you podcast, you would have known that this was not going to be a star-studded affair heading to Dallas, Texas. This was going to be guys that have walked the straight and narrow, worked hard, nose to the grindstone, use all that. Those are the type of guys that Tennessee wants to Dallas, Texas for SEC Media Day. So we'll get into that. Congratulations, Cooper Mays. On a personal note, that I know it was a big deal to him. I'm glad he is going, very glad he is going. Could have gone last year, and last year could have been his last year, Caleb, but they decided to go in a different direction, and fortunately for them, he decided to return. But I'm glad it's ending this way. How are you this morning, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm great, except for the fact that other than Cooper, I don't like the other attendees for SEC Media Days for Tennessee, which will be a guy named Omari that was there last year and a guy named Keenan that's played one game for the Vols. We'll get into that. Also,
and to be clear, you're saying you don't like the fact that they're attending, not that you don't like them.
Oh, yeah. No. I like them all three as players. I think they are building block players, but I don't think you take your building blocks to SEC Media Days. I think you take your star power to SEC Media Days. Now, I'm going to get to this in a second. Tennessee's already been on me a little bit for something that I wrote this morning, but I was right, and I'll address it. So also, a little bit later in the program, a great column by Caleb Calhoun. Is this the year of the quarterback in the SEC, despite Tennessee not taking Nico Iamaleava, who skipped the Manning Passing Academy? That's strange. And 10 teams on offthehooksports.com by Caleb Calhoun that will not miss, that will absolutely not miss their starting quarterback from last season. I'm not going to even say the initials JM because I get in trouble for that. So I'll let Caleb say that. First, it's today's tough question, and we take a look at SEC Media Days. As Caleb writes in his headline, the Vols take experience over star power. Today's tough question is right now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Just to make it real simple, your thoughts on UT's SEC Media Day representation. That is on our YouTube page. I want your votes. You've got 4 choices. You've got good. You got no Nico, not good. No Pierce, ? And then just try again. Chuck it and be done with it. If I give you those 4 and you have to choose between those, who do you choose? Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design.
From a media perspective, I'm going to go try again. Because guess what, guys? And they can say whatever they want about, we're about a team and our leadership. It's called SEC Media Days. It's for the media. It's for the biggest stories around each team. I have immense respect for Amari Thomas and Keenan Peely, and obviously Cooper Mays would have gone anyway. If they're team captains this year, fine. SEC Media Days is not about who your team captains are. It's who your biggest storylines are. And so it should not have been those 3. It should have been Nico Iamaleava, James Pierce, and yes, Cooper Mays or Brew McCoy if you wanted to throw in Brew McCoy too. So this is a big issue for me. And Dave, I got to be honest. I think SEC Media Day should switch things up. You know what I think they should do?
Yeah. But before we get to that, you didn't think they would do this, did you? I remember you and John both thought it would be.
No, John thought it. No, I thought they would do this because I've seen how they do this. They always take their leaders. and they're veterans. I thought they would do this. I'm not surprised.
We don't wake up this morning surprised. We basically just a little bit disappointed. I want to play off your other point and then get back to what you were saying. It's not just SEC media days. It should be SEC recruiting days too. So a really smart, forward-thinking coach, not to say that Josh Heupel's not, but would push for a Nico to get out there. Now, the University of Tennessee reached out to me and said in 17 years, there's never been a freshman or a redshirt freshman attend the meetings, and there never will be. I said, well, how Mummy took Jared Lorenzen in 2000. He was the true freshman. We didn't know who the hell he was. We thought he was an offensive lineman and started to interview him as such. So it can be done. There's no rule against it. But I think that Tennessee missed a grand opportunity to have possibly the number one pick in the NFL draft and one of the most exciting young players who is, I know, a redshirt freshman, but would have done a fantastic job at the media. I actually would have more concern about taking James Pierce because of what I've heard about his penchant to run in his mouth a little bit than I would about taking Nico. I would have no problem with Nico's maturity and taking him. I think he's a little shy, not crazy about it, but as far as what he would say, he would represent the University of Tennessee in the best possible way.
Well, and to bolster your point, there's a legitimate argument that Tennessee is going to have the number one draft pick in the next 2 years in the NFL. You could have both of them at SEC Media Days this year, which is a huge tool. I got a fix for this. It's a media event. I think the media should vote on the 3 players the school's going to send. And they get to pick the 3 players each school sends.
Well, that's never going to happen.
I know, but that's...
I don't disagree with you, but here's the problem. Okay? If Nico, Pierce, and Cooper win it this year, which they probably would. I don't know. Some people might go popularity vote because he's a skilled position player like Brew, but whatever. They're going to send those guys theoretically under your premise. However, I don't know that Josh Heupel wants to do that. I almost wonder if SEC Media Days, and I can't believe I'm saying this, has jumped the shark. I almost wonder if they're better off having regional media days. Say at some point they do break up into a pod system, which I believe, and I think you believe they will. How about just an East Media Days or West Media Days? Because I know of a lot of people that cover Tennessee football, one that I have a lot of respect for, that told me I can spend the same amount of money covering Tennessee baseball for 12 days in Omaha as opposed to going to hear Josh Heupel say nothing, which is by design, and he takes pride in it, in Dallas, Texas. And as a businessman, those thoughts are going through my head today too, Caleb, to be real honest with you, after I saw those 3. Because we talked to Cooper. Keenan's going to be made available. We've talked to Amari. I mean, what for a Tennessee media perspective or a fan perspective, what does this do for the unofficial kickoff of football season? I think it takes about 2 or 3 pounds of pressure out of the ball when you're kicking it off.
Yeah, and Josh Heupel picked the 3 most mature guys who will never run their mouths. Okay, last year when we were there, we got lucky because Joe Milton ran his mouth a little bit last year. Remember the whole "I don't lose in Florida" thing?
He did, and that was good. I was like, that's the best we're ever going to get from a Josh Heupel team, but I'll take it.
Yes, exactly. Best I got out of Amari, we joked last year that West Tennessee has the best football talent because we're both from Memphis. But so we had a little fun with that. Rowan Foster agreed. He's from, I think, Covington. So anyways, the reason I wanted to, the interesting thing about it, yeah, you're right. I'm not blaming Josh Heupel for sending who he sent.
I am.
I'm not, and I'll tell you why. It's not. Josh Heupel is thinking about. Josh Heupel thinks this event as a leadership event. It's basically effectively your captains, who you want your team to rally around in the season. He's doing his job. I think it's up to the SEC, and it's up to Greg Sankey, by the way. If you want, the whole idea of the media days is is for the sake of the conference to generate the storylines. Isn't that the point?
I don't know anymore. Now, I'm glad you asked the exact way you ask it, because Travis says, unpopular opinion, SEC Media Days is unnecessary. So let's have that. What is it supposed to be for? Brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry? How about the Fire Opals? A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. And you can see a sample of the Fire Opals and the Tennessee pendant right above my shoulder. Also, they have those Power T cufflinks, which are awesome. So what is the point? Is it to give media something to write about? Is it to just stir the pot, get people excited before football season? Is it to give players an opportunity to speak in front of the media so they're prepared for the NFL? Is it an opportunity for a coach to push his narrative? Which, Josh Heupel loves a narrative of taking an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, and another defensive player. Because what's everybody said about him? He's an offensive coach that puts together a poor defense and has issues at times on the offensive line. That's what people have said. Now he gets to throw that in their face.
I can tell you the point, and the point is not what it used to be. Because if this was about generating storylines, they would have it in the same hotel every year, where they would make it the most conducive for the people there on a business trip to do interviews. Dave, last year was my first SEC Media Days. I'm just going to say this. Well, I'll get to that in a second, but I'm just going to say this. They are now making it just an excuse for a tourist attraction for the reporters who cover SEC football teams every year.
Or a convention.
It's a convention. It's not supposed to be a convention.
Companies, like HVAC companies, we love working with city heating and air conditioning. Now, I don't know that they do this, but oftentimes they will have manufacturers pay for their employees to go on conferences. But those are as much about networking and learning about as anything else. The fact that this is in Dallas, you talk about bolstering your point, and not Austin. I mean, it's in Dallas. Why in the hell is it in Dallas? I mean, Dallas is not an SEC town. I mean, your point is so incredibly bolstered by that one fact that you don't even need anything else. It's in Dallas. It's bizarre. Yes, Nashville was a reach, even though you had Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and it's funny, and you can tell. And guys, Dave is. I want you guys to know this up front. Dave is forcing me into my Greg Sankey criticism early on this Tuesday morning. I was actually going to not go at Greg Sankey today, but this is what Greg Sankey has done with the SEC in a certain way. He's tried to make it a national circus in a lot of ways, and this is another example of that. I was at SEC Media Days last year in Nashville. Dave, I cannot tell you how mind blown I was with the poor planning on logistics. They focus so much on showing reporters Nashville, which, by the way, everybody who's ever worked covering the SEC has been to Nashville already, right? It's not it's not some novel thing. And they still tried to make it a tourist event. And yet, for those who don't know, when we were there, you couldn't even get dropped off at the hotel when you were going there because there was so much construction going on. You had to get dropped off at a parking lot a mile away and then take a shuttle bus to get to SEC Media Days at the hotel. It was absolutely ridiculous.
And along those lines, I don't like Birmingham, I don't like Hoover, but when you have it there, at least you know where everything is, right? You know how to get.
You're there to do a job.
Right, you're there to do a job. You're not, they didn't tell you to lay train tracks and put you out in the middle of the desert or something. So you're there. You're there to do a job, and Nashville was there for a media event. You're exactly right. And that to me is unfortunate. And I'll be honest with you, because we love you guys and we shared a lot of the things that we do at Off the Hook Sports. And we've got some big announcements coming up here shortly. I was prepared for this in that we're planning on covering SEC Media Days in Dallas because we love getting the interviews with the other media types and some of the players and coaches. We love that. But if I do it, I'm not expecting to get anything out of Tennessee. And that's somewhat disappointing, isn't it?
Very disappointing. But this is why I said.
And I say that with no knock to Cooper. I want everybody to know that because we get all that can talk to about Cooper every week.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to add this, though. What we're talking about, what Greg Sankey's using the SEC for, that's all the more reason to let the media members vote on who's going. Okay? And the school has to give a very specific reason if a player that they vote to go can't go. Okay?
Okay, let me just throw this at you. If they vote for James Pierce, and charges have been dismissed, but he had that traffic accident where he supposedly was not respectful of police officers. Are you telling me that if you're Josh Heupel, you're okay with not vetoing that? If the fans say, I want James Pierce, you want to be able to veto that. Come on.
Media members, not fans, media members. Josh Heupel, I don't care if he wants to veto it. I don't think the coaches should get a say. I think this is solely the players, the media. It is SEC media days.
Okay, I agree with you, but it's not going to change with Josh Heupel. Some guys may be amendable to it. Like, you could probably call Lane Kiffin and say, we want a lot more media access, and he'd be like, okay, it's more time I get to spend with my 25-year-old girlfriend. But at Tennessee, it's not changed with Josh Heupel. He loves to control narratives, which I think is kind of a smart thing.
I don't blame Josh Heupel for that, but you're right. If you're a media guy, this is why you love Lane Kiffin. And this is probably why he keeps getting jobs, honestly, when he's gotten in trouble, because a lot of people, I think, prop Lane Kiffin up a little more than they should. But let's be honest, Dave, the reason is we're all in the media a little more fair to Lane Kiffin because he makes our job a lot easier. He gives us content every single day to talk about. You want that, right? With what we do, we want a coach who gives us content.
It depends what you do in the media. If you're the guy that has to keep track of what he has to do every day, I wouldn't enjoy that. But for what we do, yeah, we'll take that.
We love Lane.
For what we do, we need you to take 1 second and click that like button, click that subscribe button. We want to hear that, and we want to make sure that you're a part of the channel. And also, just go ahead and fill in. You don't have to give me 3. That's how many Tennessee will take to SEC Media Days. But give me who you would really like to take. And you can't pick Nico. I guess you could pick James Pierce if you want to include him in there. So let me just ask you. I'm not going to ask you for 3 because we did that last week. But if there was one mandatory where Caleb gets to throw down the Rook card, if you ever played Rook back in the day, and he gets to have that player, who is that player for you? And you can't say Nico.
I mean, it would be James Pierce, obviously. Number 1 draft pick probably for next year. According to a lot of sources, runs his mouth, which you love at media days. Okay, you'll want that. And then also he, you could ask him about his dust up with the law, but his dust up with the law wouldn't even be my top reason. My top reason is number 1 draft pick, and the guy talks. I want a guy who talks. I want a guy who talks a lot.
And that's a good attitude. When I say good attitude,
I don't care if they have a good attitude.
When I say good attitude about defensive players, I'm saying they're a little bit mean. That's a good attitude. Right. Like when I say Caleb Calhoun has a good attitude, well, he shows up to work every day. He loves his job. He's a great person. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. He has a great attitude. A great attitude for a defensive player is I'm a little ticked off at the world.
Yeah, that's fine with me. That's what I want. I want James Pierce. I want James Pierce to get up there and be like, Jalen Milroe will be carried off the field in a stretcher this year. Just something crazy like that.
Dylan says Gaston Moore, Cooper Mays, Amari Thomas.
Gaston Moore.
I'm not completely opposed to Gaston Moore. Now, I want to get to something I told you about last week, because you don't realize how much stock, and this is from talking to people that know, that Tennessee is putting in Keenan Pili at linebacker, and it is a lot of stock. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So I'm having this conversation with somebody at the University of Tennessee, and I'm just kind of curious. I'm asking about different guys just to get a feel for guys. Nothing that I'm reporting, but we did talk about this on the show and ask about Keenan Pili. And the person told me, he said, don't underestimate Keenan Pili. He said Keenan Pili knows this offense is incredibly well respected by his teammates, which is pretty rare for a guy who transferred in and played a game before he was out for the rest of the year. Keenan Pili is now going to SEC Media Days. He's also, if you want to pull up the tweet at some point, he's featured at the very front. He's not in the center like I would have put Cooper Mays, center of attention. Get it? He is right at the very front. He has played one game for the University of Tennessee. Caleb, is Tennessee putting too much in Keenan Pili? Because they're promoting him and they're depending on him to be that guy who is basically the Cooper Mays of the defense. He gets everybody in the right position. And we saw what happened at times last year when that didn't work out. Keenan Pili is right up there in the top 2 or 3, 4, 5 players that are MVPs of this group.
It makes you wonder what last season could have been like had he played the whole year, because there were some defensive issues at times. They have loved Keenan Pili since he arrived on campus this time last year, or even before last year.
Yep.
And I think that for him to get to SEC Media Days, one, it makes me feel like he is fully healthy and back and ready to go. It sounds like that was just a freak injury, right? What happened last year?
Yeah, tricep injury, yes, is 9 times out of 10 a freak injury.
Yeah, and it's not like it slows you down at all. So somewhat like, dare I say, Dave, Kevin Burnett? Is Keenan Pili this year's Kevin Burnett for Tennessee?
I think that Keenan's a little bit more of a tackle-to-tackle guy. Burnett, I think, has a little bit more athleticism, and Keenan may be better against the run in general. I was going to ask you this. He reminds me a little bit more of a Kevin Simon from what I've seen from practice tape. But
pre-injuries, right? Because Kevin Simon was really slow his last year because of all the injuries.
Yeah, I'm basically looking at both at prospects coming into Tennessee. With Kevin, it would have been as a high school prospect. With Keenan, it was a college transfer prospect. So that's how I'm looking at him. My question is, well, who's the best NIL transfer that Tennessee has gotten in this very short window of NIL transferring?
Since, like, are you talking about dating back to December of 2022?
Yes.
Because the best transfer they got is Hendon Hooker. But I guess since Josh Heupel took over as head coach, Brew McCoy.
Where does Keenan Pili rank?
I mean, I can't rank him that high because he hasn't played anywhere yet. Now, this year, I think he could propel to number 2 or number 1. But until then, like, you got to have John Campbell Jr. You got to have Omar Norman Lott. Both of those guys were very good players last year. So we're talking, I mean, those 3 specifically. I'm going to have to think a little more over who else would kind of fit into that mold. But those 3 really immediately stand out. John Campbell Jr., Omar Norman Lott, and
Brew, right? You had Brew?
Brew McCoy.
Okay,
yeah,
so,
Brew McCoy.
Okay, let me debate this for a second. Brew, I think that Tennessee could find good receiver play elsewhere. They've proven that they could do that. It wouldn't be as good. No question about it. But I think with Squirrel and Brazel and Nimrod Webb, I think they could find that. Not as good. And I left out Dante Thornton. I want to get back to, you said John Campbell. But if I flip it on the other side and I look at the defense, I think Keenan Pili is in charge of the entire defense. I think Jonathan Campbell is in charge of the opposite left defensive end for the most part. So I think Keenan Pili, short of Nico, and I feel even stronger about this argument since we started having it, short of Nico Iamaleava, is the most important player on Tennessee's football team. And I'm even going to go so far as to say more important than Cooper Mays, because at least you know how you can deal without Cooper Mays nowadays. At least Bison Lang knows he might have to play. Nope, that was a total shock last year. Now, if you look at Keenan Pili, who's behind him? Jeremiah Tellender? That's a pretty significant drop-off. I think the drop-off there is more significant than the drop-off would be on the offensive line. Agree? Disagree?
I can't agree yet because I saw what happened to Tennessee last year without Cooper Mays at center. But
and I don't, and you know I'm not selling Cooper short, right?
Yeah, but I will say there's an argument that Keenan Pili is the most important player on this defense now, and it's because what's more irreplaceable? A guy who's the most like Keenan Pili is important because of the lack of talent behind him. James Pierce is important because James Pierce is the most rare talent you could ever have at edge rusher, and I don't care how deep you are there, nobody there could do what James Pierce can do. You know what I mean? It's like. So it's debatable over who's.
It's like you could have 5, because I always thought it was interesting that Tyler Barron was kind of like a poor man's James Pierce, a very poor man's James Pierce. So you can have 5 Tyler Barrons, but you'd rather have 1 James Pierce, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. You'd rather have 1 James Pierce.
I can have 20 Tyler Barrons or 1 James Pierce. I'm talking the 1 James Pierce with the twisted ankle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're talking a rare talent in that way. So it doesn't matter how deep they are. Nobody else can do what he can do. But Keenan Pili, look, this stands out to me because we asked this question before the show. Is he the most valued Vol who hasn't been a starter in history going into a season?
The only one that I could think of that was as ballyhooed was Albert Toina.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Because he was a junior college guy. I mean, junior college guys used to be a big part of what we did in covering college football recruiting because a lot of guys didn't qualify. Now somehow people magically qualify all the time. I'm not sure how that works out exactly. I'm sure the academic standards haven't changed, and I'm sure that the importance of athletics wasn't a factor at all. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Go to Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. And if we can we put the Hooker's Corner Patreon page in there? We would love for you to join that, because the next person that joins, I am going to hook up with, it's officially in, believe it or not, it is the NCAA t-shirt in which the Vols vanquished the governing body that was so absolutely horrible, but you can get on board right now for just $9.98. There's the QR code. Go ahead and sign up. You'll get some exclusive information from me and Caleb Calhoun when it comes to recruiting. Also great prizes. We're going to give away a John Henderson autograph baseball. We're going to give a John Henderson autograph mini helmet, I should say, a little bit later in the month. And anybody that signs up now gets that awesome NCAA versus the state of Tennessee t-shirt, in which the state of Tennessee won quite easily. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friend Medicare Misty and Omari Thomas. He's not just for Caleb anymore. Now all kinds of people like him. Stay tuned.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
The QR code is still up if you would like to join Hooker's Corner. Join today, anytime today, and you will get a free State of Tennessee versus the NCAA t-shirt. Join today, just $9.98 a month, and you also get some interaction with Caleb and me, Dave Hooker. I think you'll appreciate that, and extra recruiting coverage. So a lot going on as Tennessee has named its participants for SEC Media Days. And one guy that Caleb got to visit with last week as we rotated people in, it was Amari Thomas. Second Media Day attendance is pretty rare. You usually don't go to because you like to take seniors, theoretically. We've poked holes in that so far. But your thoughts on Amari Thomas making his second SEC Media Days appearance? Pretty strong.
We're underrating the type of leader Amari Thomas is for this team.
Totally agree.
It's rare to go 2 years in a row. It's also rare to go as a defensive tackle when you're picking leaders. Dave, you know this. Defensive tackles are not typically leaders of teams. They are go about their business and beat up the guy in front of them, but they're not the rally the troops player on defense.
It's inherently difficult to do that because what are you going to do? Look behind while you're in your stance and say the safety's 2 yards off to the left. I mean, it's hard to be a natural born leader as a defensive tackle. As a matter of fact, I'm having trouble thinking of one right now.
Yeah. And Dave, you covered a lot of SEC Media Days. Is Amari Thomas the first defensive tackle to be this type of leader for Tennessee since John Henderson? Because John Henderson was that leader too for Tennessee in 2001.
No, because John had to keep Albert in line.
Well, that doesn't mean he wasn't a leader.
I know, but that's a whole different cross to bear. So I'm going to say John was the better leader.
John Henderson was the way better leader.
Right. So nothing against Amari, but when you have Albert to bear and you keep things somewhat normal, which they were, I mean, there was some crazy stuff at practice I've told you about, but for the most part, it was normal. And one person was and I mean this as complimentary as I can be, was a little deranged. So if you're able to keep that, I think you deserve the leader of the best defensive tackle leader of all time. That
so, okay, the reason I'm bringing that up is John Henderson. I mean, I said Amari Thomas the first defensive tackle leader since John Henderson, though. I didn't say it was better since John Henderson. Has there been anybody since John Henderson on the line that you think has been on Amari Thomas's level?
Okay. Can I throw you some and you tell me what you think? And I may be able to give you a little perspective from being around them and getting to know them a little bit better. Whereas you kind of see the public perspective. Jesse Mahalona. And I'm just going to throw names at you and you give me your thoughts. Jesse Mahalona.
Jesse Mahalona struck me as arguably the best attitude player Tennessee ever had. Doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know if he was a leader though. Was he that vocal?
No, I don't think he said, "Hey guys, we need to do better." I think he was a guy that was exactly what you're saying. Yes, rest in peace. That did his job. So I agree. But if you're that good at doing your job and you're that passionate about it, you're a natural leader in terms of example, right? So you have to give him something for that. Same thing I would say for Darwin Walker. I don't know that he screamed at people a lot, but Darwin Walker was a very good defensive tackle. Also was a very good student, which goes along.
You're reaching. That's pre-John Henderson. I said since John Henderson.
I am reaching. Yeah, I am reaching. Well, I'm having trouble, man. I'm having trouble.
Yes, and also this day and age where defensive tackles are even less valued than they used to be. And the other
Smoky
point,
Mountain Radio, you said Derek Barnett. We're going interior guys. Barnett was more
interior.
An end.
And also, I'm not. Derek Barnett was more of a leader than most defensive ends, but Dave, you're not usually going to get. You're not usually going to get leaders out of defensive ends or edge rushers because they can only. That's like getting a leader out of a running back. They can only impact the game so much, even if they're generationally talented, and that includes James Pierce.
Now, Elias says Ratliff. I think Ratliff was more along for the ride because of the injuries, and he was a defensive tackle, so he wasn't a defensive end. But let's open it up a little bit. Who are the defensive tackles even before John Henderson that you would say are great?
then you're going somewhere because, again, Tennessee was more built around the defensive line for a long time. So you could say Billy Ratliff, you could say Darwin Walker, go all the way back to the 60s, Steve DeLong, who won the Outland Trophy.
Yeah, I think that group you just said, that mid-90s, you know who I think the best leader at the interior of the defensive line was? Jeff Coleman. He win it.
Well, he played defensive end, though, didn't he? Or was he on the tackle? Was he a tackle?
Played a lot of tackle. I mean, Ratliff was the one that subbed in for him in the Arkansas game, so I know he played tackle at that point. Coleman was probably that guy, even though he wasn't the most talented player. But Tennessee's had a good run at defensive tackles. I don't think there's any question about that. A lot of the players you can find represented at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN in North Knoxville. You will love it. They still got some stuff from the College World Series there that you want to take advantage of. So certainly do that. I'd say Omari Thomas, too, is a bit of an unlikely candidate to be one of the best leaders in Tennessee football history, which is essentially what we're calling him. And talk about a guy who's maximized his ability. Has anybody done more with what they have than Omari Thomas? Because I interviewed Elijah Simmons on Sunday at Rue McCoy's golf tournament, and you can check it out on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe for more, because we're going to have a lot more coming. Thanks to our friends at Vol Auto. But there's no comparison between Omari Thomas and Elijah Simmons as a raw athlete. There isn't. But you have to give Omari Thomas a lot of credit for maximizing what he's been able to do. Two-time All-SEC, two-time SEC Media Days. Has he made the All-SEC team? I don't think he has, but borderline. I think that's about the player that Omari Thomas was. Dan Williams is a great comparison, Smoky Mountain Red. But not the leader, but a great comparison as a player, I think. Okay, so
I wanted to get there with you because the thing about Omari Thomas, let's talk about who we're naming here. Smoky Mountain Red says Dan Williams. You said Darwin Walker. We all know John Henderson's the gold standard of defensive tackles at Tennessee, right? That's the goal. He is the gold standard above everybody else. So he is a legend. Omari Thomas is not on those levels. We're talking about two longtime NFL players and an Outland Trophy winner. Omari Thomas is not on their level, and yet he's reaching their level of leadership, which really stands out. And and the thing Omari Thomas has done, James Pierce would not be threatening to be a number 1 draft pick next year if not for the work Omari Thomas did inside. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Byron Young wouldn't have been an NFL draft pick without Omari Thomas. Tyler Barron would not have been able to become a diva and command a bunch of NIL money on the open market if it wasn't for what the work Omari Thomas did on the inside. I'm going to honestly say that. And I'm going to go down these lists, Dave, because there's a bunch of players at defensive tackle who have been drafted since Henderson, and you tell me because you covered them. But the 2003 year, the year after Henderson and Haynesworth, again, Tennessee had 2 tackles drafted. Remember Abreu Franklin and Rashad Moore?
Mm-hmm.
You consider either of them leaders? I didn't.
No, I thought Rashad Moore was kind of like Omari Thomas as a player, and Abreu Franklin was just a big dude.
Okay, after that, you said Jesse Mahalona. Two guys I would say that could rival. I think Justin Harrell may be up there. Justin Harrell, I think, was an emotional leader, just led by example. I mean, him willing to play that Florida game. Remember that after his injury?
I can roll with that. Yeah, I can roll with that one for sure.
Turk McBride?
Didn't get the leadership feel from Turk. I feel like sometimes, though, I may be stepping on somebody's toes and they were a leader behind, because there are a lot of things that go on with teams that we don't know about. So I didn't get that sense, but I could be wrong. So I don't want Turk to be going, why are you ripping on me? Go ahead.
And then after you stopped covering them, but still, as for Knoxville Sentinel, I guess, there's Dan McCullers, Khalil McKenzie, Matthew Butler. I respect Matthew Butler. I can't really consider any of them like vocal leaders of the team, though. So I think Omari Thomas stands out as a rarity, as a guy who really was a vocal leader. And guys, the reason I'm saying post John Henderson is because of the way the game has changed. It was much more common for defensive linemen to be leaders during Reggie White's days, when college football was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And
was it?
I think so. During that time,
defensive tackle is a leader. I mean, I still think of. I don't think of the defensive linemen when I think of the all-time great teams. I still think of the linebackers of defense like Ray Nitschke, or I think of all-time Ray Lewis. I think of all-time great defensive players in the back seven. I don't think that you expect much leadership out of the interior.
Yeah, but I mean, he played end in the NFL, but like Reggie White did play tackle in college, and he's considered one of the best leaders in NFL history.
Okay, well, hit the like button if you think I'm an idiot, because here goes. How was he a great leader when he only played 1 year? At Tennessee, how was he a great leader when he only played 1 year? He basically took a year off and played 1 year and made millions of dollars.
Well, I'm saying in the NFL he was known as a leader. I can't speak for his time at Tennessee.
Okay, and Elias says disrespecting Doug Atkins. I'm having to do that too. A great leader on your team is not shooting pigeons out of Wrigley Field before the game.
Oh, by the way, Reggie White was the captain of the
sorry, he was the captain?
He was the captain of the 1983 team, yes.
It sounds like a captainship to put a little bit of pressure on him, just personally. But Doug Atkins is not also a leader when he's telling George Halas to go stick it, because he knows, because Doug Atkins knows he's the most transcendental player in the world at that time. And if you don't like it, he'll just go somewhere else. He was not a great leader. He was a huge jerk to deal with. And I mean that as a compliment.
You know what defensive linemen are? And here's what we're saying, guys. Here's what defensive linemen are in college football. They are the guys that if you are a general running a unit, okay, running a battalion, a unit, they're the guys in your unit that if they weren't in the military, they'd be criminals. That's typically your defensive lineman, right? Like if they weren't in the military, they'd be committing violent crimes for the mob. And so that's not usually the guys you want leading your team. You are harnessing their proneness to violence and turning it for something good. That's typically what a defensive lineman is. Yes. So it stands out
I'm just imagining this now. Mrs. Smith, we would like to welcome your family and your son to the University of Tennessee and this visit. And we just want you to know that we provide alternative places to work in case things don't work out, such as loan shark enforcement. How about that? How about if things don't work out in the NFL, we can guarantee you that your son's going to make $250,000 breaking arms for dudes that don't pay their debts.
I mean,
if that's not a social media clip, I don't know what is.
You don't, and that's what defensive linemen are. Like, and so for a defensive lineman to be a leader, and this is the thing with Damari Thomas, this is why I can't speak highly enough of him, and it's not just because we're both from Memphis, guys. He is a 2-time leader of Tennessee's football team as a defensive lineman. That really stands out. I mean, there are very few players that like I hold in higher regard.
By the way, Trevor says, "Hey Caleb, I was a defensive lineman. I'm just going to beat the hell out of you." No, he didn't say
Trevor,
that.
I love you. I love you, Trevor.
Thomas said, Caleb's a very nice guy. Thomas says, "Are we basing our leadership standard as someone that produced sacks or any type of defensive disruption, or someone that kept the defense functioning?" The ultimate leader to me, non-position specific, but defense, was Eric Berry. He played at a high level. He was also the leader that got players up when they didn't want to be up because it was a hard time at Tennessee. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but John Henderson was both as well. He provided that leadership, and he also was a disruptive force on the field. That's the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, I agree. And the difference is, like you said, though, Eric Berry is a strong safety who could quarterback the back end of the defense, basically. And particularly,
I'm not trying to compare. I'm just trying to pick the ultimate example. Like if you called me and you said, "Dave, I want to talk about leaders, great leaders that you've covered in your time," he would be number one to me.
Oh, yeah. Now, there are, on the defensive line, I guess to answer the question, amazing elite defensive linemen who are elite impact players oftentimes can become captains of teams, but it's because of their greatness. So Leonard Little, from everything I heard, Dave, was a very quiet player, but he was a force to be reckoned with. So that's why he was team captain in 97.
Well, if you want to slide out to end, okay, a lot of defensive ends are crazy. You do.
Well, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of defensive linemen. Typically, if a defensive lineman is a team captain, they are superstar players. They're team captains because they lead by example with how they play, right? And Amari Thomas's play is not going to propel him to a team captain. Not that he doesn't do a great job, but he's limited. So for him to be a captain, that comes with his vocal ability and his leadership that really stands out. And by the way, it's not like Josh Heupel had to take him, because I thought he could have taken Brew McCoy or another one of the seniors, take two offensive guys. He took Amari Thomas when he already had a defensive guy, when defensive linemen are not typically captains, and Amari Thomas went last year. That really speaks to how highly they think of Amari Thomas.
Okay. I don't turn it over to the message board, but Kyle, I respect you here. So I'm going to change up the order just a little bit, because I want to get to not taking Nico to SEC Media Days, the quarterbacks that are going to be at SEC Media Days. And then Kyle says you guys are blowing it way out of proportion. Who cares who they take to the SEC Media Days? Well, obviously, Caleb and I are going to care a little bit more than most, because that's what we do for a living. But I would ask you next week, when you're listening to Amari Thomas break down how he goes against Alabama's offense, you would rather be hearing Nico read from the phone book. That's a fact. Stay tuned. 2 minutes. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Rave Owner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Smoky Mountain Red keeping me on task. In my opinion, not taking Brew is bigger than not taking Nico. Great point. 4 downs is right now.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Hang tight with me here, because I want you to hear all of this particular take. I have a little bit of concern that Nico Iamaleava is a little too shy. And we're going to get into that. But first, let's attack exactly what Smoky Mountain Red said. And I want to remind people that Cooper Mays will tell you how to be a part of every single program by just doing this.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, first down.
Coop here. First down.
Okay. Trevor just asked Brew's health. It's 100%. We reported that over the weekends on our YouTube page, interviewed him. He could play football tomorrow if he needed to. He's good. Now, the question I have about Brew or Nico Which is the bigger omission? First down. And then I want to get to specifically Nico avoiding some things, and is that a concern?
Given the way that Josh Heupel and they select people going to SEC Media Days, I think the bigger omission is Brew McCoy, because I thought Brew McCoy was supposed to be a leader of this unit too, and so it's Brew McCoy.
Okay. Second down,
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Nico Iamaleava had a vote and said, I'd as soon not go.
You're not reporting that, are you?
No, I'm asking you. Yay or nay? Sorry.
No, I don't think that happened. No.
I think he was perfectly fine with not going because he doesn't want to overshadow his teammates.
Okay.
But that leads us to third down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
He didn't go to the Banning Passing Academy. What's your take on that?
So, yes, Nico Iamaleava, this stood out to me that he did not go to the Manning Passing Academy 2 weeks ago. And everybody goes to this. Every top quarterback goes to this.
Literally.
Peyton Manning went to Tennessee, so there's even more of a connection. And there was a lot of red flags to me on him not going to the Manning Passing Academy. I don't think it has to do with Nico shying away from anything. I'm going to be honest. The constant on why Nico didn't go to the Manning Passing Academy and why he didn't go to SEC Media Days is exactly the same. Josh Heupel didn't want him going. He didn't want him going to SEC Media Days because he picked the guys going. And Dave, I don't think Josh Heupel likes his quarterbacks going to the Manning Passing Academy. And I'm going to tell you guys why. Well, you know why, but I'll just bring it out for the message boards. The Mannings teach proper footwork and proper development for the NFL. That is anathema to what Josh Heupel wants his quarterbacks to do. Josh Heupel wants his quarterbacks to do the exact opposite footwork-wise of what you're supposed to do as a quarterback and what you're taught fundamentally.
Right.
So
I don't use proper. If I may kind of take issue with that word a little bit, just different. They're just different ways of teaching offense, which you can have success at either level. Now, ultimately, I would rather be with a David Cutcliffe than a Josh Heupel because I feel like I'm learning more offenses, not just an offense. Does that make sense? So It's not a knock against Josh Heupel, but Josh Heupel or Lincoln Riley or a lot of these guys with great offenses, Sonny Dykes, they can win championships. Josh Heupel can win championships as things are going now. So, and I think he eventually will.
And and I'm telling every recruit this. If you want to be an NFL quarterback, you can go play for Josh Heupel and you'll probably be fine in the NFL. But if you want to be a successful NFL quarterback who starts your rookie season in the NFL, don't go play for Josh Heupel. Because or Lincoln Riley for that matter. Caleb Williams is going to get sabotaged by the Bears because he's not ready to start. He was taught all bad technique for the NFL, and there's no way he's going to fix that in a year. And I think Nico Iamaleava, again, Josh Heupel wants you to learn those bad habits, and that's weird to say, but he wants you to learn those bad habits. So if you get taught good habits by Peyton Manning, Josh Heupel's going to say, all right, I need you to relearn that footwork. It's not good for players to go to the Manning Passing Academy. Maybe Josh Heupel doesn't want to replicate. Joe Milton went to it last year. And he looked a little bit.
We got him throwing the ball 90 yards, which everybody went insane about and raised expectations. Trevor says, good point, Caleb. Could have Nico getting confused on his footwork. Don't need that mess. Trevor, you're 100% right.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
He doesn't need to go to the passing academy. And if he wants to go, he can stand there and sign autographs and have a good time and enjoy himself. But he doesn't need his footwork worked on. I can tell you that there was a player that had his footwork worked on by a quarterback guru not in Knoxville. Came back. They didn't like it, even though he felt like his accuracy was better. They want you to be mostly one side of the field. You cannot throw, Caleb, to your left if your footwork is set to your right. You cannot throw back over your body. It is physically impossible. So you watch the way they set up. It is different from anything that David Cutcliffe taught or Peyton Manning ever did. And I do think that is at a higher level. I'm not saying it can't keep you from winning championships, but yes, I understand your point. And you're not going to run into the NFL with those type of issues and mechanics and be an immediate hit. Hendon Hooker may be a superstar, but it wasn't going to happen as a rookie.
Yeah, exactly. He was going to have to develop. And you even if you're all generational world, Nico Iamaleava could honestly hurt himself by being so good at Tennessee if he accidentally messes up and becomes a top 5 draft pick in the NFL, because you get drafted by one of those teams. Yes, it's guaranteed money, but they want you to play immediately. And
well, he's not going to be. I'm going to go on record right now. Here's a big one. He's not going to be drafted any lower than 10 whenever he's drafted.
Really?
He's not going to be drafted any lower than 10 overall. He's not going to be an Aaron Rodgers who slides down. He's not going to be like a Brady Quinn who slides down. He's going to be in the green room. He's going to be one of the 10 guys you're most talking about whenever he comes out.
Okay. I mean, that's I probably
it kind of falls in line with your thinking. I mean, I think he's that good.
I think that could hurt him, but I agree with you. I think he's that good too. And that could end up becoming a disaster for him if a team wants him to win. Now, if you're in the 9 to 10 range, they may sit you for a year, you know what I mean, and develop you. But top 5 pick, they want you starting that year.
But Caleb, for a moment, let's not think about Nico or our fantastic fans who are going to hit the like and subscribe button, which we appreciate, or our loved ones or our friends. Let's just think about me. Let's think about if Dak Prescott's ready to hang it up and a guy named Nico gets drafted. Let's think about Dave. Wouldn't that make Dave happy? And at some point, doesn't it need to be about Dave? Sometimes it's about Caleb. And let's just make it about Dave, where I can have this little fantasy in my mind that the Cowboys are not going to get beat in the championship or divisional round every year, and they're going to get a guy named Nico, and they're going to win a Super Bowl. So it's about Dave.
Dave, I'm thinking about you.
Thank you.
But you know what, Dave? Your Cowboy fandom actually has made me correct myself live on air. Dak Prescott is a gigantic exception to this rule we just said. Dan Mullen did not develop him for the NFL. NFL ready.
Not at all.
And he still was able to become Rookie of the Year in 2016. So maybe if you're in the right system, you could. I never even thought about that. Okay.
Well, and he wasn't supposed to play, but Romo got hurt. Remember, that was a really goofy year. That is funny how you mentioned that. I don't know that. I don't think he did much to help him in street fighting either, because Dak Prescott got beat down at Daytona Beach.
Oh, yeah. Well,
John State Farm will never beat you down when it comes to claims. They'll make sure you get those claims as soon as possible. Customer service still matters. Just call 423-396-2126 or donself.net. Donself.net is right below 423-396-2126 in the greater Chattanooga area. donself.net. Again, donself.net. You will love Don Self, and he takes care of you. And I do believe that Nico has kind of a split personality in the way he deals with people. I think that, one, he doesn't want too much credit because he feels like that would be because I think he's really smart. That would be a surefire way to blow up the apple cart, wouldn't it? If everything is going good and you're knocking on the door of a championship, quarterback shows up and says, I'm the, stuff, right? That would be the ultimate way to blow this whole thing up. So I think he's smart enough to know that, but I think he genuinely wants other players to get credit. So I don't think he's going to be a media hound. And that's good, because by the end of his time at Tennessee, he'll be sick of talking to the media. All quarterbacks are.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Could Josh Heupel, could this be even deeper? Maybe not. It's not about developing quarterbacks, because he did let Joe Milton go to the Manning Passing Academy last year. But you talked about Nico not attending the golf event Sunday. Is Josh Heupel trying to keep Nico out of the news, out of the public eye? Is he the one behind this?
I don't think so. I just think he's got so many things going on. I mean, you know what I was told why he didn't make the golf tournament is that he was on a plane at the time visiting with people, a private plane on a Sunday afternoon. I think he is living such a different life than we're used to as a college athlete that sometimes we don't realize that. Listen, sometimes Prince can't make your show because he's got so many things to do. Nico, I think, sometimes has so many things to do that he can't make some smaller things that people would like to see him attend. And I'm not going to knock at him because he's got more people pulling on him than I can possibly imagine.
Yes, but not SEC Media Days and not the Banning Passing Academy. I'm starting to think that because of what happened earlier this year, where he was the face of Tennessee, he was the face of taking down the NCAA. Like, when future generations talk about the fight against the NCAA, they'll talk of Nico Iamaleava the way they did Ed O'Bannon in 95. Like, it's Nico Iamaleava's fight.
Flood.
The free agent, yes. Yes. I mean, that Nico Iamaleava is in that category now. I think he didn't want to be in that category. I don't think Josh Heupel wanted him in that category. So I wonder if they're like, it was a lot. Let's keep him under the radar for now. Because the truth of the matter is, and we are seeing this with EA Sports video game, there are very clearly a lot of power players involved, very angry at Tennessee for what happened and want revenge. And I'm not saying that will be used to go at Nico, but crazy Caleb conspiracies coming in. You ready?
I'm always ready for crazy Caleb conspiracies.
That's crazy.
What if the NCAA is so angry at Tennessee getting one over on them by way of Nico Iamaleava that they secretly, or a few members of the organization secretly, work with a few teams to put a bounty out on Nico?
Okay, they're not going to do that.
That's crazy.
I'm just saying.
No, if he's Caleb, it would be better off putting a bounty on the Georgia kid. He's
Which Georgia kid?
Suddenly I can't remember the quarterback's name. I'm having a
Carson Beck?
Yes.
Why would they put up? Carson Beck didn't show up the NCAA and take him down. Nico Iamaleava took down the NCAA.
Yeah, but if you're going to put a bounty together, I'd rather win. 2 minutes, 10 teams that won't miss a starting quarterback. Also, is this the year of the quarterback in the SEC? He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. 2 minutes.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show. a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
It's pretty much got to be Tellender if it's not Keenan Pili, right? If something were to happen to Keenan Pili, have to be.
Yeah, it's got to be Tellender. That's why Elijah Herring was forced into the transfer portal.
Yeah, and then Arian Carter, we like a lot, but he's not a fit there, and he got banged up, which is a sign to me he doesn't need to be playing in the box that often anyway. He needs to be on the edge or on the outside. Who's going to be the most surprising superstar this year? Maybe this is a tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to give you three choices. 1, Elijah Simmons. 2, Arian Carter. 3, Dave, shut your mouth. We're saving it for tomorrow.
Between those two, I would say Elijah Simmons, because I think Arian Carter is kind of an expected superstar.
Based off my knowledge and who I talk to, I would go the opposite, even though I think most people would agree with you. All right.
Nobody would be surprised by Arian Carter. That's the thing. Sorry.
Yeah, he's just, I mean, we've called him pretty special on this crew. All right, so 10 teams. We have 10 teams that will not return their starting quarterback from last season. That's a lot.
Who won't miss their starting quarterback. No, it's 10 national teams who won't miss their starting quarterback.
Who will not miss their starting quarterbacks from 2023. So Caleb has the list up online right now. As you can imagine, Tennessee is going to be a factor in that. But let's start with another SEC team. You had Vanderbilt at number 10.
Yes, guys, Vanderbilt may have actually upgraded at quarterback. I don't know how much good it'll do them, but they lost A.J. Swan, who transferred to LSU, which was weird, and Ken Seals transferred to TCU. But 5 newcomers have been added to Vanderbilt at quarterback. The standout, though, is New Mexico State transfer Diego Pavia. He was just under 3,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards last year, and he's coming with his offensive coordinator from New Mexico State, Tim Beck, who was hired. If you don't remember, Tim Beck was the head coach at Illinois who ran a finesse offense but couldn't get anything else going. But he does know offense. So I think Vanderbilt will be better at Signal Caller this year.
Okay. Then you have a list of about every ACC and Big Ten team I could find. Wisconsin, Wake Forest, NC State, Mississippi State, Miami.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know Mississippi State was in the ACC.
No, it's not. My bad. But a couple of teams I want to ask you specifically about, and that is Mississippi State at number 6. Still trying to bounce back from the terrible Mike Leach tragedy. I can't help but root for them, Caleb, just because of what they've been through.
Well, I wanted to get to them, but I wanted to explain each one. Wisconsin at number 9 because they had a Miami transfer, Tyler Van Dyke, Luke Fickell, who couldn't really get anything going last year with the offense he had his first year. So Braden Locke and Tanner Mordecai are both gone. Tyler Van Dyke comes from Miami. Van Dyke is a better fit for the pro style. That's why he struggled with Mario Cristobal. That's why they'll be better. Wake Forest has a former Tennessee offensive coordinator, and Dave Clawson still there, who, whatever else you think of him, Dave, is actually a very good offensive coach. And
I could have told him earlier in his career, and he would have been a better offensive line coach a lot sooner. And that was, don't flip your offensive line.
Yes. So
when he stopped that, he had success at Wake. That's exactly what happened.
So he lost Mitch Griffs and Michael Kern, who both transferred out, but they combined for 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And now he's added a Boise State and Louisiana Tech transfer, Hank Bachmeier, who has been very good when healthy, pro-style quarterback. NC State's relevant. As we all know, Tennessee plays NC State this year. Dave Doran lost Brennan Armstrong to graduation. MJ Morris was his up-and-comer, but he's going to Maryland. They have added Grayson McCall, who, if you remember, Jamie Chadwell, the Coastal Carolina offensive juggernaut coach, turned him into a superstar. McCall has 88 touchdowns, just 14 interceptions this year. He's going to make NC State a major threat. Now, to Mississippi State, who you brought up. Yeah, the Mike Leach tragedy was awful. People are a little weirded out about this because they were very high on Will Rogers, Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers.
I was high on Will Rogers, too.
Yeah. I think the reason they won't miss him is not because of him. It's because he wasn't in the right system last year without Mike Leach. He had a massive drop off in production last year without Mike Leach.
Yes.
And they've added Blake Shapen from the Baylor Bears with Jeff Lebby. Guys, you heard it here first. I keep saying this. Jeff Lebby is the next offensive superstar coach in the SEC. He will in 3 years. We'll be talking about him the same way we do Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin. In the exact same conversation, he is that good, and he may be better than those two. I think he might be a little more versatile. I'm a big Jeff Lebby fan.
Number 1 on the list, you might be able to guess. Caleb Brodick, get mad at him. And first, I'll tell you 15 seconds and why Neubert Collision Center needs to be your one-stop shop for body damage.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right, so count me down, Caleb. Where are we now as we will get to Tennessee?
Number 5. As unintelligent as Mario Cristobal may be, he does run a spread offense, and he lost Tyler Van Dyke. I just mentioned him. It's funny, Dave. I said Wisconsin upgrades by getting Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. Miami upgrades by losing Tyler Van Dyke to Wisconsin because he's a pro-style quarterback, and they are going to add Cameron Ward, the Washington State quarterback. Remember him last year, Dave? Remember how he was a Heisman contender for 2 months before the last month?
I do.
And he's a great fit for Mario Cristobal's offense. If Mario Cristobal knows how to take a knee when his team is up with seconds to go, they could be much better this year.
Is Mario Cristobal the worst, air quote, offensive coach? And by offensive coach, I mean a guy that's gotten a head coaching position because of his background. So defensive head coach, offensive head coach. Is he the worst offensive head coach that has gotten that job because he's an offensive coach in college football? I mean, honestly, he's gotten a pretty darn good job for being incredibly average.
He has.
Look at the places he's coached. I mean, Alabama, I mean, you're going to win there. Oregon, you're going to win there. It just seems like he's the lovable redheaded stepchild of the Alabama family.
Yeah, but there's one who has them all beat for this, Dave.
Is it
Chad Morris?
Oh, Chad Morris!
Hired as an offensive mind and was a massive flame out.
Chad Morris actually received the Butch Jones Award as from you. Actually, they do a big ceremony at the end of the Saban Academy every year, and he won a big award. It was the Butch Jones Award that you get a real head coaching job. His response was, "Oh, I kind of like it around here. I don't know that I want any real pressure." Chad Morris is the best for a poster boy for the Saban rehab facility, no question.
Oh yeah. Okay, so number 4, Mel Tucker, you mentioned him. He is gone. Jonathan Smith comes there from Oregon State, who I think did a heck of a job there. Michigan State lost both their quarterbacks, Skaten Hauser and Noah Kim. They're not missing them. They are going to add transfer Aiden Childs, who also comes from Oregon State. Going to introduce the spread. I think that'll make him competitive with Michigan. By the way, I want to do a sidebar real quick because, Dave, a bunch of people have asked me about Michigan on this list. Like, wouldn't they have a highly touted quarterback? And I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't think game managers who win national championships are easy to replace at quarterback.
I will agree with you, but if you say the name Troy Aikman, the end of the show.
No, I was not going to say Troy Aikman.
Okay. Because some people say that about him, that he was a game manager. No, for the most part, I think the Michigan quarterback under Jim Harbaugh, who's not there anymore, but he was going to be asked to be a game manager. I don't think they were going to throw any Randall Cunningham out there and say, make 5 plays and the defense will win it. I think I think Jim Harbaugh wanted an extension of himself, and I think Josh Heupel does too, to a large extent.
No, I totally agree. So let's have a little fun at number 3. Y'all are going to troll me because y'all are actually laughing at me putting faith in Kentucky. But Devin Leary, can we agree, did not live up to what he was supposed to be last year as Will Levis's replacement with Liam Cohen back, right?
I did not have. You may have seen me roll my eyes. It wasn't you. I didn't have high expectations in the beginning. So saying Devin Leary didn't live up to expectations is kind of like saying the sun came up this morning. I wasn't stunned.
Okay, but now they've got Brock Vandergrift, who by all accounts would have been a superstar quarterback at Georgia if he wasn't behind the best quarterback maybe Georgia's ever had. And
Yes,
they got him.
I give you that one for sure. I think that's a great one. Yeah, I got no argument. Anybody that's picking fun at that doesn't get it. I mean, this is an upgrade at the position, no question.
And they also are adding Vandergrift. For those who don't know, his talent is his vision. It's not like, Kirby Smart's typically gone for the big arm. Vandergrift's known for his vision and his elusiveness and his mobility. They're bringing in Bush Hamden from Boise State to run the West Coast offense there. I think that's going to be a very effective offense for Kentucky. I think Mark Stoops knows what he's doing.
Yep, and he's going to try to control the ball a little bit, and he's going to try to field a defense that can bend but not break. It's basically the exact opposite of what Tennessee does. So what Tennessee does, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to try to score as many points, which, yeah, everybody wants to score points. But on the flip side, defensively, they're willing to be aggressive as well, in that they're going to give up some big plays, but they are going to flip the field with a turnover. Kentucky is the exact opposite. They just want to bend but not break, make a play once they get their backs against their own goal line, and then on offense, score as few points as you have to win, Caleb.
Yeah, exactly. And with the West Coast, they can now do ball control because, as you know, Dave, the West Coast offense is pass happy, but it's kind of a pass happy way to play time of possession, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all those Roger Craig those were extended runs when he'd catch a little slant pattern out of the backfield. That was a running play. If you went back and counted all those as running plays, which you could, the West Coast offense was probably about 65% run.
Yeah,
I know that sounds insane, but those little slant passes, that's an extended toss sweep. That's what that is.
You're right. They should all almost be counted as rushing yards for the receiver rather than passing yards for the quarterback, but that's a different thought.
And the stories I can tell you about that coaching staff would blow your mind, and I'm absolutely not going to do it. Rest in peace, Bill Walsh. You're a great man.
All right.
Now you got now, are we at number one yet?
No, number two.
Number two.
This one could have been number one. Ohio State. Now, Ryan Day's on the hot seat. But one of the biggest reasons he's on the hot seat, Dave, is he wasted last year's team of talent with a quarterback who wasn't fit to run the offense in Kyle McCord. I cannot believe he believed in Kyle McCord to run that offense.
I was surprised too at the beginning of the year. I thought maybe I tried to give coaches benefit of the doubt. I thought he knew something that I didn't know.
And he clearly didn't. And because Will Howard has now since transferred to Syracuse. I'm not Will Howard. Kyle McCord has transferred to Syracuse. They brought in Will Howard from Kansas State, who is the next elite dual threat quarterback of the Big Ten. I don't know how it's going to work with Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator. I think the unfortunate thing is Ohio State has lost a lot of talent. But
Caleb, I think you're contradicting yourself a little bit. You're telling me that, okay, what do you think Ohio State's going to do this year?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Ohio State's going to have major regression this year, but it won't be because of their quarterback play. They're not going to miss their quarterback. They're going to be mad that they regressed everywhere else.
Okay, but what you're telling me is that a program with theoretically all the talent in the world, they should have, right? I mean,
yes.
Okay. And an elite quarterback that you claimed, not me, I don't know him as well as you do. That's in the Big Ten, at least winning that conference, isn't it?
I think other Big Ten schools have gotten more competitive recently.
Okay, true.
And I think that the Chip Kelly, Ryan Day marriage will clash.
I agree.
To a certain degree.
I agree that everything could implode. Everything that's going on in Columbus could implode. But if it doesn't, let's play that route. If it doesn't, then you're talking about Ohio State being a really good football team.
Oh, they're going to be a really good football team. If it doesn't implode. I just don't know if it'll be national championship contending because, again, they lost too much talent elsewhere. Ohio State, if they had Will Howard on last year's team, they're winning a national title. And I picked them to win it going into last year because they had the most NFL draft picks, like first-round NFL draft picks. And you can look at it. Ohio State was probably top heavy, not depth wise, but top heavy. Dave, Ohio State was the most talented team in college football last year, more than Georgia, more than Alabama, more than Michigan, and yeah. So, but
for the record, and a lot of you know this because we've discussed it already. Georgia is the favorite to win a national championship at plus 300. Ohio State, though, just right behind it, plus 400. Then you get into some quality at Texas at plus 750. Despite what you think about Texas, they were knocking on the door, and plus 750 is pretty good. I don't like Oregon at plus 1,000, but Ole Miss at plus 1,400 with a playoff format. I don't hate that as the other quality bet on that list that I quickly ran off.
You don't think that, given the way this team has been strung together, something's going to implode on Ole Miss? I don't mean implode like don't go 2-10. I mean implode like
yes.
There's no way they're going undefeated with that.
We officially have to enact a new implode rule. Caleb and I do, because there are so many teams that are so desperate to win right now, they could put themselves in implosion position. And if you've ever been in implosion position before, you know it's highly uncomfortable in your sciatic nerve. So they are in implosion position with a lot of other teams. So I think we're going to have to judge teams off what could happen if there's not an implosion. So I think Ole Miss could implode. Maybe 51% will implode. But if they don't, they're going to be pretty good. Same thing I would say with Ohio State. If they don't implode. If they implode, they could do what Tennessee did in 2008. That can happen.
It's like people who are very, very desperate to get into a home now, so they take a really, really bad interest rate with a really, really bad neighborhood, and then the housing market crashes and they've lost everything. That's basically what it is with a school like Ole Miss or Ohio State right now. And so, yeah.
You can always refinance is what they'll tell you.
Well, yeah, and Lane Kiffin is the king of refinancing. Let's call it what it is. Lane Kiffin will refinance every year, basically.
With women.
So speaking of refinancing.
I got your down payment right here.
Oh, my gosh.
Huh?
I got your down payment down here.
Yeah. How about a little of this escrow? All right.
Oh, God.
Okay, but in all seriousness, you do have Tennessee number one. I get accused of ripping on Joe Milton, so I'm not going to do it. But why is Tennessee significantly better with essentially a first-year starter as opposed to a guy that had played an awful lot of football? Because on face value, without seeing those guys, if I just pitched that to you, hey, Caleb, my name's Dave, I just met you on the street, you would say, man, if they just could have had one more year off that really talented guy, Joe Milton. But you know more than the average dude on the street.
Yeah, Nico's just a better fit for this offense. And okay, I'm going to say this.
And you say did a lot. I'm just going to say better player. I don't care which offense.
I'm being nice, but I'll say it this way. Very uneducated people, Dave, think Tennessee's losing something with Joe Milton because they looked at a stat line. Now, pretend you don't know that Josh Heupel's Tennessee's coach. Pretend you don't know about the offense. If I told you a quarterback completed 65% of his passes for 2,800 yards, averaged 8 yards an attempt, ran for another 300 yards, had 27 total touchdowns and just 5 picks, you'd be like, I'll take that any day, right?
Yes. Yes. And I'll give you an example. A lot of us as sports writers were oftentimes as freelance stuff, we would write about teams that we didn't cover, like for the Athlons and Lindy's and those sorts of things. And you did have to take a leap of faith with some teams if they assigned you, say, the University of Michigan, Wisconsin, or something crazy. I mean, you did have to take a leap of faith. So if I looked at that stat and I said they're losing that guy, I'm like, major, huge loss, take a step back. But knowing it up close, I don't feel that way at all.
Exactly. Because anybody who knows Josh Heupel's system knows that you're not supposed to put up very good numbers as a quarterback in Josh Heupel's system. You're supposed to put up video game numbers as a quarterback in Josh Heupel's system. He literally designs his system for you to put up video game numbers. So that's what Nico is designed to do, is to put up video game numbers in this system, which is why, yes, Tennessee will not miss Joe Milton. That does not mean they don't respect Joe Milton. That doesn't mean they don't hold him in high regard as a person. They're not going to miss him, though. They're not going to miss him at all. And you'll see that.
I'm going to give you 15, anybody on the message board, I'm going to give you 15 seconds to think of what aspect because I've got one. What aspect of Joe Milton's game Tennessee will miss this upcoming year? So I've got a really good one. 15 seconds brought to you by Ray Varner Ford.
Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
I think Joe Milton had one thing going for him that can't be replicated, and it may have hurt him at times, but I think it helped him at times. And that was that not a laissez-faire attitude, but I don't think he got too serious in serious situations, and that helped him at times. I think it hurt him at times when he should have taken things more seriously early in his career. But as far as something that Tennessee could miss, they could miss that even kill type approach that Joe Milton had. We don't know what Nico's approach is going to be 100% yet.
Yes, that's very true. We don't.
I mean, he could get out there and panic, completely freak. I mean, he could.
It's kind of the like, do you want the Peyton Manning or do you want the Casey Clausen? I guess.
I know.
Peyton,
who would you do?
Casey.
I love Casey. I still believe to this day Casey is the most underrated player that I ever covered. But maybe
wait. There's
but let me finish.
Underrated, but taking him over Peyton.
Oh, no. Peyton's a better quarterback. But as far as guys to cover, guys that I just enjoyed covering, and I didn't cover most of Peyton's career, in all fairness. So I didn't have a tight relationship with him.
I think Peyton is more likely, and this is Joe Milton's problem with his lackadaisical approach. And this is actually, we talked about Hendon Hooker's leadership, Dave. A lot of people will bring up a lot of Joe Milton's players didn't deliver as much for him last year, and that actually might be true. But maybe it's because Joe Milton didn't demand it. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Trevor says, with Milton, I'll miss having something to complain about.
All
right.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
I'm just going to say it. Hendon Hooker in 2022, the reason people delivered for him, Dave, I think players were scared to not perform for Hooker, honestly. I think they were kind of scared. You talk about it. He becomes very, very intense in the game. And players were scared to not perform for that. They were not as scared to not perform for Joe Milton.
Oh, I'll give you that. I wouldn't use scared, but I would use the term negatively reinforced.
It's going from Jimmy Johnson to Barry Switzer.
Oh, that's okay. You got me there. That's pretty good. All right. I mean, when you're eating hot dogs on the sidelines during games, that's not the best look.
But they said they won that Super Bowl because they still psychologically.
Just look for a head coach, is it?
No, but they won that Super Bowl because they still psychologically, Jimmy Johnson had instilled a culture of fear in them for so long, right? That they just reflexively played their hearts out that 95 season, didn't they?
Yes, they did. All right. The SEC has announced their attendees for SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. A lot of quarterbacks. Doesn't mean a lot of great quarterbacks, but a lot of quarterbacks. It could have easily been one more, but Tennessee decides not to take Nico Iamaleava. What's your take on the state of quarterbacking in the SEC? It seems to go ebb and flow. I can remember years where it was really, really bad. Other years where it seems like a future NFL superstar was just going to be walking down the hallway at SEC Media Days. Your take on where the SEC is now in quarterback play. And then as the next step, I'd like to kind of put where Nico might fit in there in the beginning, middle, and end of the year. But let's start your thoughts on the quarterback crew that's going to be in Dallas.
The SEC is about to have its best quarterback season ever. And I mean ever. So,
strong.
2 years ago, so we all knew, Dave and I were joking about it the minute we went to SEC Media Days last year. 5 of the 14 teams brought quarterbacks, and Tennessee brought Joe Milton by default. Let's be honest. Okay. So we looked at each other.
So they felt they had to.
Yes. So we looked at each other and we said, this is going to be a bad year for SEC quarterback play. The coaches just don't believe in their quarterback play. The opposite is true this year. 11 of 16 teams are bringing quarterbacks. Now, before I get to this year,
I want to go through them because I think some of them are more of a PR move than an actual he's the best player move. But go ahead.
Yeah, so 2022, Dave, when you went, it was 7 of 14 teams. And you saw 7 of 14 teams, and you said this is going to be a heck of a year for quarterbacks in the SEC. Didn't you? Like right off the bat, you knew it was going to be a good year.
I would have thought so, yes. What happened?
It was a good year for SEC quarterbacks.
Yeah, Burrow, of course.
No, 2022.
Oh, 2022. Okay.
We had Hooker, Anthony Richardson, Stetson Bennett, Bryce Young. Like that was a quarterback class if there ever was one for the SEC.
It's a good crew, but I'll tell you, I only like 2 of the ones you mentioned long term. Without getting caught up in that. But what about this year's class?
All right, so this year there's 11 out of 16 teams. And by the way, let's just get it out of the way. The team that's not bringing up quarterback, because we've talked about it all show, Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, we'll get to that. But just want to point out there should be 12 out of 16 teams if everybody was bringing their best player. So Alabama's bringing Jalen Milroe. Now, this one's debatable, Dave, because Jalen Milroe I thought should have been in the Heisman race towards the end of last year. However, you can also make the point, and I'm all ears for it, that he's not going to be a fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense.
Right. Milroe could be 1 or 16 on this list by the end of September for me.
Exactly. So there's that.
Where's there 18 now? Is there 18?
No, 16. The Big Ten has 18.
Really going to confuse me.
Arkansas is bringing a transfer quarterback, Taylon Green. This is their Bobby Petrino experiment, shall we say. The Boise State.
Wait, what happened to KJ Jefferson? That guy went from being the cat's meow to get out of town.
Kendall.
Do you have any idea what happened to KJ Jefferson other than he's just not a very good quarterback?
Kendall Briles left Arkansas. That's what happened. So I think that he's now at UCF. Just in case you were curious, but yes, Taylon Green comes from Boise State.
Yeah, it just seems like it's odd to me. Seemed like he was a fan favorite. Go ahead.
Taylon Green comes to Arkansas from Boise State. Bobby Petrino is going to be his offensive coordinator. Arkansas's high on him. They're already trying to promote him. Now, another quarterback who should not be going to SEC Media Days. This is the Joe Milton. Are you ready for this year's Joe Milton, Dave?
No, I am, but I want to take it in a slightly different direction because I want to get Peyton Manning involved. And the Arkansas quarterback making SEC Media Days, are you telling me he was one of their top 3 players, Peyton?
They're like, that is total bullshit.
No. That's a PR move to promote their quarterback, which is, if I were Josh Heupel, I would be doing that as well. So I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying that's what it is.
Well, let's have a little more fun. Returning starter was not good last year. Peyton Thorne is coming for Auburn with Hugh Freeze. Dave, I watched Peyton Thorne play last year. I didn't think he was that good.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
He'll do better with a great quarterback coach. He'll be markedly better. If you think wherever you thought he was, if you thought he was 10th best quarterback in the nation, or I'm sorry, in the SEC, he'll be 6th.
Well, that's where,
yeah, it'll be 4 or 5 steps better than where he was.
That's where I'm at. I think it takes a year to figure out Hugh Freeze's offense. So I think this year he'll be very, very good. Next one, and you're going to call me crazy for all of his flaws, for all the flaws on the football team right now. Graham Mertz was not one of them at Florida. He's actually he was a very efficient quarterback last year.
That's hot.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I'm okay with him. After you followed that up with Anthony Richardson, who I thought was the most overblown quarterback and still is to this day in the history of Florida football.
Yeah. I kind of agree. So we got, in the history of Florida football, none of those Spurrier quarterbacks? Rex Grossman was a Heisman favorite. It's kind of funny to say that out loud now.
Yes, and he almost won the Heisman, almost won a Super Bowl.
He did.
That's like big shot Bob stuff there. I mean,
he's actually he's the best quarterback in the NFL to ever play for Steve Spurrier. That's kind of sad, but it's kind of funny.
He's the best player to ever play for Steve Spurrier. He's the best. He's probably one of the worst to almost win a Super Bowl. And can you imagine if a Florida player had beaten Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl? That would have not.
Would have been brutal. Well, Peyton did. Peyton is responsible for the most legendary Florida quarterback no longer having a job in the NFL because Peyton went to Denver and that's what got Tim Tebow traded, and then Tim Tebow never got another job. So
okay, let
that
me
was
ask
petty.
you this. You're not that far away, so you're not as old as me, but let me ask you this. Would 18-year-old Caleb, if he's offered the opportunity to go to Steve Spurrier's Fun and Gun team or Josh Heupel's team now, which would you select? And I'm going to let you think about that for 15 seconds from our good friend at Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Where you going, young Caleb? You're a 5-star. You get to go wherever you want.
I would probably go to Spurrier because I think Spurrier develops you a little. Spurrier doesn't teach bad habits. You have to accept certain things in his system, but he doesn't teach bad habits out of his quarterbacks. You know, he actually Spurrier, I didn't realize, pioneered the way quarterbacks should hold the ball to help with their release. He was kind of one of the first coaches to do that. And
he does teach bad vision, okay, because I don't think they're designed to read the entire field. But I agree with you for the most part. I think he does a fine job of producing. If David Cutcliffe is a 10 on the scale of 1 to 10 of producing an NFL quarterbacks, and 1 is my son Trammell, then I think that clearly he's higher than not. But I think that Josh Heupel and both Steve Spurrier, when they get with quarterbacks to the NFL, the quarterbacks are going to have to be retooled a little bit.
yes, but significantly more for Heupel than Spurrier. I think Peyton Manning still would have had an NFL Hall of Fame career had he gone to play for Florida under Spurrier. So I guess.
Okay. Do you think that Nico Iamaleava would be a Heisman contender at the majority of the top 25 schools in college football right now?
Yes.
Okay.
But
I thought we were about to majorly disagree on something, so I thought I would just ask.
So to get back on track, because I want to recap, we mentioned Jalen Milroe, Taylor Green, Peyton Thorne, Graham Mertz. I think we believe in all of those quarterbacks to a certain degree, except you're questioning. You think Taylor Green is the one you question. You think that's a PR move by Arkansas, but the other three you believe in. So after that, do we have to ask this question? Georgia, Carson Beck? Like, is that even a debate that he's a superstar?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many bona fide debates are there other than Beck at quarterback?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, there seems to be a consensus that they're not going to miss their Heisman winning quarterback in Jaden Daniels. There seems to be a consensus that they're not going to have a drop off at all.
I've thought that exactly. And Garrett Nussmeier to me looks like a guy that just needs to go ahead and be a high school quarterback, because if you want to compare him to Jaden Daniels, you can do so all day long, but they're not on the same plane. And I think you would agree, Caleb. I'm pretty decent at evaluating guys, and that ain't your championship winning quarterback. It's not.
No, but he could be your T. Martin if LSU makes the right move on defense.
Could. I think he's more like what happens to LSU in 2019 without Joe Burrow, and that is they don't win a national title. I think they're more along the lines of that.
Wow, so you think Brian Kelly is the next Ed Orgeron? Man. And I thought he was the first LSU coach with brain cells since
No, you know what I think? I think Joe Burrow was that special where he overcame Orgeron, and he could have overcome Les Miles. I don't think they have a guy to overcome Brian Kelly now, who I actually think is a significantly better coach than. But
they don't have to. But that's my point. Do they have to overcome Brian Kelly?
I agree. They don't have to. Did you like my shirt? I love it. Caleb's getting his. It says Off the Hook Sports on it. It is embroidered and it looks fantastic. And it's so easy to do the same for your business. And it comes thanks to our friends at Apex Apparel Group Design. You get 15% off your first order. The phone number is right down below. You can look no matter which platform you're on. 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. Apex Apparel, they do so much more than just shirts. I'm telling you, design, brand, and market. They do it all. Also, I want to remind you, check out TriStar Hats for the latest in TriStar Hats. Go to the original hats, apparels, and more. Use the promo code HOOKED for a discount. TriStarHatsCo.com. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a present. Did you have
Are we
anything
not going to
else?
finish the list?
No, go to the list. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were done with the list. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, far from done. And I wanted to ask a question at the end. But Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, elite quarterback, superstar quarterback. Like, not even a question.
I'm going to go knocking on the door. I'm not ready to deem him elite. Elite to me is Bryce Young.
Blake Shapen, Mississippi State. That's another PR move because Jeff Levy's there.
Yes.
You can hate him all day, but Brady Cook, Missouri. I think he's a very good quarterback.
He's the natural. You would take him. He started before. He's played well. It would almost be an insult not to take him.
Oklahoma. This is another LSU story where they seem to think that they're better off with Jackson Arnold than Dylan Gabriel this year. So,
which is odd.
That pretty much, and then Texas, Quinn Ewers, which that speaks for itself. I just think the SEC is going to be better this year at quarterback than ever before, and that includes the Cam Newton, Joe Burrow, and Johnny Manziel years.
Those are good years, man. Those are good years. We'll see. I want to see where Nico falls in this. You feel confident that Nico will be what, the second best quarterback in the SEC?
Best. He's going to be the best by the end of the year.
The
closest competitor is the SEC East in 2008 when you had Matthew Stafford and Tim Tebow. Remember that one? But that's all I could really think of.
I'll leave you to that. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation